You're listening to Balance Not Burnout, a podcast helping leaders rethink the speed of their business. And I'm your host, Mark Williams. Join me as I explore the power of a more intentional, balanced approach to leadership. Thanks for listening. Hey, everybody. Welcome to Balance Not Burnout Season 2. We're on episode number 14. And today I sit down with Blue Compass CEO and founder Drew Harden. He founded the digital marketing company in part to create a space where all employees thrive. So join us as we explore why having a good workplace culture can be life-changing for all. Thanks for joining, Drew.
Hey, thanks a lot for having me, Mark. I appreciate it.
Why don't you jump in and give us a little bit of your background and how you came about forming Blue Compass?
Yeah, so Blue Compass is a digital marketing agency. We're based here in the Midwest. And, I used to be a graphic designer, an animator many years ago. And, I got hired as an intern while I was in college at a agency that did mostly video production. And I had great experiences there, learned a lot. And as time went on, I worked there. They hired me right out of college then. And I worked there about 2-3 years. And I started wanting something different. I started wanting to focus a little more on digital. And, that really drove me to consider starting my own place. And in addition to that, the workplace that I was at, it ended up being a little bit toxic. The culture wasn't great. And that always really bothered me. And so because of those two reasons, I decided to start a new business, which was Blue Compass. So this was back in 2007. And here we are about 17 years later.
Awesome. So first, I want you to define yourself as a digital firm. And I'm curious, you use that specifically. And I'm curious for our listeners, how do you define that? And what's the difference between a digital marketing firm and another type of marketing firm?
Sure. Well, I would consider us a digital marketing agency. And so that's different from a traditional agency in that most of the time it seems like traditional ad agencies or marketing agencies, they do a little bit of everything. They do web, they do print, they do TV, radio, etc. We only do digital. It's only the web. We don't do any print. We don't do any radio. We don't do any TV or anything like that. So that's always been the sweet spot for us. We've always wanted to be the very best at that. And sure. I think it's really hard to be the best at everything. So that's why we focus on digital.
Awesome. Then you use the term toxic culture. And I have worked for, unfortunately, several organizations that I would consider toxic.
Yeah.
Let's talk a little bit about your definition of toxic and how specifically it felt and what you didn't like about it.
Yeah. Well, when I started at this business, when I started working there, I was super young. I was 19. I was an intern. I worked there for about 3 years, and then I got hired, worked there 3 years after. And when I started, things were really great. It was a really fun place, a lot of personality. It wasn't corporate at all. And as time went on, that seemed to change for some reason. And I think one of the main reasons that happened, Mark, was that the leaders who ran the company seemed to be less present as time went on. And without their involvement and their direction and vision and things like that, things seemed to deteriorate a little bit. And people would get upset that, someone else got a promotion or that this happened or that happened. And instead of taking it to someone that could do something about it, it would become drama and gossip. And I think that's kind of what turned the culture toxic. And that really bothered me. I wanted to work at a fun place that was, enjoyable, where I went home every day with a smile on my face. And that just wasn't what I was experiencing.
Boy, I can totally relate to that. My dad told me when I was a kid, and I never understood this expression until I ran a company. Excuse the expression, but he used to say, the fish always stinks from the head. Right? And he always said a classroom takes on the flavor of the teacher, an organization takes on the, and there is some truth to that, I believe. There is something to be said for the culture of the person that runs it, or at least allows things to happen, right? And so I'm interested, before the show, we were talking a little bit about, making Mondays feel like Fridays. And I think that's a quote that you had used. And so talk a little bit about how Mondays feel like Fridays.
Well, Mark, as I went throughout my career, once we started Blue Compass many years ago, that was always a big emphasis on it for us, just having a great culture. And as time went on, I realized that as the CEO of this company, really my number one purpose is to make our mission and our values known to our team members, to live them out myself, and to help our team do the same. And when I do that, it really, really helps keep that incredible culture. People aren't looking over their shoulders because someone else is taking their credit. People
Yep.
are trying to help others. There's laughter in the office. There's joy. It's a pretty great place to work. People can focus on doing good creative work. And so as I've done this more and more, I see so many organizations out there, Mark, maybe they have bad leadership or they're just struggling with culture. They don't think culture matters that much. They think it's kind of fluffy and they're focused on the numbers and they're focused on the to-do list. And because of that, so many people out there love Fridays and they hate Mondays. They get that bad
Sure.
feeling on Sunday night, and I really dream of a world where everyone has what I feel like we have here, which is a great feeling on Sunday night, no apprehension, where Mondays feel like Fridays and every day in between. And that's really where that came from. And that's really one of my dreams. I would love everyone to have that experience. I think, Mark's, there's so many blessings that come from work and from a great job.
You
I mean,
bet.
it gives us purpose, it gives us personal development, financial development. We can have incredible relationships, friendships that we build. There's so much good that can come from it. And unfortunately, there's so many people out there that just aren't experiencing that.
I would agree. You mentioned mission and values, which near and dear to my heart. When I first started at BI, we had a mission statement and we had some value, the core values of the company. They were on the wall, and I would argue they were just on the wall.
Yeah.
They came up with them at some meeting years ago, and so that was the core values. We didn't hire to them, we didn't manage them, we didn't reward them. And over time, in my experience anyway, again, another expression I heard. Rewards and recognition is like religion. If you only do it a little bit, it doesn't sink in.
Yeah.
So we have always traditionally been a rewards and recognition company, and we recognize to our core values. So, for example, teamwork. We will reward and or recognize someone for doing something over and above with the team, right? So including other people or a team that created something or saved us some money. Empowerment, when someone goes above and beyond and takes responsibility for something that might even not be their job. That's reward and recognized. I'm curious, do you guys have a reward and recognition system, and what does that feel like?
Yeah, that's a great question. I I totally agree with what you're saying, Mark. One of the things I've found over the years is that there's so many organizations that focus on finding people doing things wrong.
Yep.
I think it's more important to find people doing things right, just like you're saying, that recognition piece. And you get what you focus on, whether in business or life. You get what you measure, you get what you focus on.
Sure.
So, yes, that is incredibly important. And I think the best way to do that, kind of like you're saying, is by the values. So we have 5 value statements here. And, when we find someone fulfilling that value, we really try to give them a shout out, a reward.
Yep.
It's when we have team meetings. We have a team meeting in a couple days, and one of the things we do, I always go through all of our value statements, and then I call someone out and say, "Hey, who have you seen in the last couple weeks that has done this value, that's lived it out?" And that person will give someone a shout out and tell what they've done, and everyone claps. And just so not only rewarding people like that, but just telling the stories of what happened and what exemplifies those values, I think is really important.
You bet. We started I love that. We started what we call a chip program. We actually have poker chips. And every single employee in the office has a little jar with poker chips in it. And at any time, you can reward and recognize a peer, a superior, a subordinate. If you see they've done something that deserves recognition, you give them a chip. At the end of the month, you can redeem those chips for merchandise, right? So sometimes it's branded merchandise. Sometimes we have this little catalog and we give away things. And it really has fostered people paying attention to other people, right?
Yeah.
Someone that does something special. So it might even be just something as small as you had a question about something. You went to a subject matter expert. They stopped what they were doing, answered your question. You go back to your desk and you give them a chip. And it really has fostered a culture. I hope it has fostered a culture, at least from my vantage point, of recognizing what you were saying, right? The carrot instead of the stick. Really, I want to do a good job because there is some people do appreciate a good job. So I love that, and I'm thrilled for you that you've created that. Busy guy starts a company. I know you're married and you have 2 boys.
Yep.
How do you balance it all? You got a very successful company, obviously from 2007 to now. You've been around for 15, 16 years. How do you balance everything?
Yeah, great question. People ask me that a lot. When we started, I was very, very young. I was about 25 when I had the idea for Blue Compass, and it's startup hours. I mean, I'm working 80 hours a week or more. It was very
Yep.
difficult. Our boys were very, very young at that time, and it was really a struggle. And I think the only thing that got me through it, Mark, was just passion for this whole vision, passion for what we're doing here. And I was thinking about this the other day. I think that I made up for a lot of my inexperience just with extra hours. I mean, I just had to work a lot. It was very difficult. So now I feel really blessed because, we've grown, I've got better. Everyone wins when a leader gets better.
Yep.
And I think a lot of times it's difficult for an organization to ascend much higher than the potential of the leader. So thankfully, I got really serious about getting better myself, about improving myself, about personal development, leadership skills, etc., because I didn't really know anything at the beginning, and it probably showed in my actions. But I got a lot better about it, and now, we've hired really great people. We have a full team, and we have people who do things a lot better than I do. And so I'm able to step out of their way. I learned to delegate over the years, Mark. That was hard, but I learned to delegate and get out of their way. And so now I have a lot fewer hours I have to work. So I'm very thankful for that. And I learned too, I used to feel really guilty, Mark, when I would not be working, even on a Saturday. If I went
Yep.
like a full Saturday morning without working, it'd make me feel guilty. And so I really had to work on that inside myself. Like, what is causing me to feel like that? Why am I feeling like that? What can I do to assuage myself of that feeling? And I finally realized that, being, quote, unproductive
Yep.
is being productive, because you need that downtime. You need to recharge. It sounds simple, but I just didn't get that for years. And I still wouldn't say I'm perfect, but I got there. So that's kind of how I handle it today. It's a lot better than it used to. Another thing is I just love what I'm doing. But I think a big piece of why I don't get burnt out here is just because I enjoy coming to work. It's
Yep.
not super stressful. I'm not stress or worry free, but I've learned to handle that stress much better. And it's just a fun place to work. Like, I got team members here who support me, who love me, and vice versa. And I
Yep.
think just the quality of the culture really helps me with that.
100% agree. I'm curious. I have found that, two types of employees. We have those that people that work to live and those that live to work.
Yeah.
An organization needs both, for sure. And we have some young, not even young anymore. We have some employees that really want to strive to be more. They want to be leaders. They want to grow in their own professional development. And then we have a bunch of employees that view work as a means to make a great living.
Yep.
And they come in, they want a very nice place to work. They want an environment that's fun, but they just want to do their job and go home. And we have quite a few like that. And I actually love that type of employee. Sometimes they're easier to manage, quite frankly. So I'm curious in your world because, again, you started as an intern, graphic artist, moved up, and we have a marketing department. We've hired several people that are very similar, right? Similar types of roles, editors, copywriters, that kind of thing.
Yeah.
How do you balance when you have we're a 130 employee company. Not everyone can rise and run the company, at least while I'm still around, right? And so there does come a time where some employees do have to leave. Not every opportunity is within our four walls. And I'm curious how you manage that in your own environment, because some employees do want to end up being the boss.
Yeah.
And how do you manage that? And how do you facilitate still a great relationship? And at some point in time, knowing they may fly the coop?
Yep. Set the right expectations when you hire. That's really important. Set the right expectations. Understand what that potential team member wants. Do they want to be the CEO someday? Is that their goal? How driven are they? You can get that by having a conversation with them, but also looking at, the past, asking them their goals. So I just think understanding the type of person you're hiring is really important to begin with.
Yep.
Also understanding, what type of person do I want for this role? Actually putting some thought into it. That's really important. And then setting expectations. If this person is going to get hired and they're like, I absolutely must be the COO in 5 years, maybe that's not realistic. And saying to them, that's probably not going to happen. So just setting those expectations, because sometimes when we hire, unfortunately, organizations will hire and it's just to fix a short-term problem.
Yep.
And if you just fix the short-term problem and forget about the long term, you'll run into issues in the long term. So I think that's a piece of it, Mark. I think that's really important. Um, Also, just working and communicating with that team member, throughout, just seeing how they're doing, what's your goal, where do you want to go, that sort of thing. And like you said, I mean, sometimes, we have team members who aren't too focused on the next level. They love what they do, and they're pretty satisfied where they are. And we have others who really are aggressive and they want to get to the next level. And you're right. I mean, there's pluses and minuses to both people, I suppose you could say, just
You
like
bet.
any. And so it's just constantly having that dialogue. And I think that, one of the things I was taught by a mentor of mine is that dysfunction dwells in the conversations that are not had.
Amen.
And it's just going to be problems if you're not talking about the future with one of your team members. I think that's really important.
Yeah, I love that. I just wrote that down actually. Fantastic. Open lines of communication always, but sometimes it's not what's said that's the problem. I have found very often some people just either they feel like it's not worth it. Oh, I can say something, but nothing ever changes, and so they don't say things, and so things don't change. So I really appreciate that comment. Obviously, you're a driver. We work with hundreds, literally thousands of independent entrepreneurs in the financial services business. And one of the challenges I have found as they grow their businesses is one of delegation. You started a business, you can do it. These are things that you want to touch and feel. And at some point in time, it does become impossible to wear every hat. And I'm curious for yourself, how you have managed to let some things go and delegate the things that you just either can't do, don't like to do, don't want to do, and how have you hold on to the things that you want to do?
Sure. That's a great question. I think that's a big challenge, Mark, for any entrepreneur, any leader, because when you start an organization, you're just so passionate about it. You have such a
Yep.
vision, and there's so many leaders out there who get disappointed when others are not as passionate. And I felt that same way for years. But that's just not realistic. You're not going to be able to hire, every single person on your team will not be as passionate as you are. And you just have to accept that. That's
Unfortunately, yes.
okay. That's okay. They don't have to be as passionate about your vision and your company as you are. It's not realistic, and that's just fine.
Yeah.
So I think, like I said, it was really hard for me for many years because I think I felt like things wouldn't get done the right way unless I was involved, which is a
Yep.
pretty selfish way to look at things. And then I finally started noticing when I stepped out of things didn't necessarily fall apart. Like things actually went better a lot of the times. And I was able to recognize, okay, what am I good at and what am I not good at? I used to be super involved in like project management and our process and things like that. I learned over the years, Mark, I'm not really good at that at all. I don't understand our process very well. I understand the basics, but it would be a big mistake for me to jump in and change our process about, how we accomplish things, how we get things done. That's not my strong suit. And so I just started trusting and stepping back. And, I think with age, a lot of wisdom comes. And I just started noticing that, things aren't falling apart. So I'm probably not perfect at this even now, but just having the humility to give some things up and trust others, that's the key.
Yeah, I know for me, I'll talk personally. I have the same. There are certain things still at the company that I want to be involved in. Number one, either because I like them.
Yeah.
We just did a trip with our salespeople, and part of the trip planning I love. Like I love thinking about what's the agenda of the meeting going to be, and where are we going to take people. And we have meeting planners, of course, and they do a much better job at most of it. But there are some things that I just love to do,
Yeah.
and oftentimes I literally have to tell myself, you need to step out, let someone else do this. They'll probably do
Right.
it better.
Yeah.
So much appreciate that. If I hired you to come take a look at my company and say, hey, I want to take a look at your culture, what would be the few things that you can tell an organization to help improve their culture? What
Well,
would you be
yeah,
looking for?
there's a lot of things I'm sure, and we could talk about this one forever. And every culture is different, every organization is different. So if you did that, my first thing would be a lot of study. I would ask you a
Yep.
million questions. I would go to people on your leadership team, I would ask them questions. I would go to people, I would go to interns and ask them questions. I would ask everyone in between questions and observe. So that's really important because every place is different. But I'll throw out just a few things that I think a lot of organizations probably could do that would really help a lot. One of them is appreciation, but individualized appreciation. And I think a lot of organizations miss this. My wife used to work at an organization. She also works for an agency. It's a huge agency out of New York and Boston. She works remotely. And for Employee Appreciation Day, they sent everyone, it was like a $50 Amazon gift card or something like that. I think that's great that they did that. I love that they did that. But that's a global appreciation. Individualized appreciation is much more powerful. And no one's ever left in an organization because they've been appreciated too much.
For
One of the
sure.
things, yeah, we do here is know how people like to be appreciated because we're all different. There's a book called The Five Languages of Appreciation in the Workplace. And it just details five different types of appreciation. So some people really like acts of service. Like
Yep.
Mark, maybe that's you. So if I come and I do something for you, I help you out with the task, like that really means a lot to you. That you appreciate that. Other people are words of affirmation, and it maybe you're not that, Mark. So if I come and I compliment you and I praise you for the job you did, you appreciate it, but it doesn't like hit you deep down. It
Sure.
doesn't mean quite as much as it does maybe for me because that's what I like. So I think if managers and leaders can understand how people on their team like to be appreciated, you can be a lot more effective with how you do it. At Blue Compass, we have an intranet, and everyone on our team has a different bio page. And when someone starts, they fill that bio page out. So it asks a lot of questions like, how do you like to be appreciated?
Yep.
And it'll also ask things like, what's your favorite snack? What's your favorite coffee? What's your favorite restaurant? So we try to give everyone the ammo that they would need to be able to appreciate someone very effectively. A couple years ago for Employee Appreciation Day, we gave away gift boxes to everyone. And this took a lot of time and energy, but it was worth it. So not everyone got the same thing. We had everyone's favorite snack. So someone opened it, he got
Yep.
his favorite snack. He got his favorite sports team t-shirt. He got his a gift card to his favorite restaurant. We ordered just individualized gifts off Amazon forever, just so totally unique. It took a lot of time, but it was so incredible to see people open it. They're like, "Oh, what did you get? I got this, he got that."
Yep.
And everyone really appreciated that. So individualized appreciation, I think, is a really big one.
I love that, and I'm grinning because it's happened to me twice in my career. One, I was the recipient of that. I went to a convention where prior to the convention, they asked us to fill out a sheet, and it was just a get to know you sheet, much similar to your bio thing.
Yeah.
What do you snack on? What sports do you watch? Like it was just, I thought it was a get to know you thing. Well, of course, we show up, and in the rooms, they had room dropped individualized gift bags, I'll call them, the drink of my choice, the candy of my choice, the type of pen I like to write with. Like it was amazing. It was super like
Oh,
one of those, wow, that's awesome. They
yes.
listened to the customer.
Yes.
It was fantastic.
Love that.
We do something very similar. So I have found that although money is a motivator for lots of people. For lots of people, it is not.
Yeah.
How do you motivate? People always ask me, how do you motivate your employees so it doesn't cost a lot of money? Well, you don't have to just give money. Some people just want an hour or two off, or a longer lunch, or maybe a coupon to a nail salon, or just something different than just throwing money. And if it's personalized, I 100% agree with you. It sure does go a long way, and it's the feeling that I get when someone makes something personal to me. So I love the fact that you guys incorporate that in the office. It's fantastic.
Yeah, thank you. It's been really effective for us. And yeah, I love that gift bag that you got. That's really cool that they did that.
Yeah, super cool idea. Question for you, and then we'll wrap up a little bit. I ask every guest this, customized for you. It's Saturday or Sunday morning. You can do whatever you want with whomever you want. Describe for me your perfect Saturday or Sunday morning.
Such a great question. Oh, I love it, Mark. Well, for me, I would say I usually do have this. I'm thinking like a Saturday morning. I get up pretty early, so I go work out. I want to do that, lift weights or go on a run or something like that. And my wife and my two boys are still asleep. My boys are teenagers now, so they both sleep really late. My oldest will sleep till like, noon or something like that.
Of course.
And my wife is more of a night person than a morning person, so she'll sleep in too. So I have some alone time. And often, I'm done working out and everything, they're all still sleeping. So I'll do something productive usually. I'll create some content usually, and I really enjoy doing that. So maybe I'll film a video and put it on my social media or my YouTube channel. I like to talk about the things we're talking about now, giving people tips for the workplace leadership, things like that. I really enjoy that. Write a blog article from my website, something like that. So I'll usually do some of that. But yeah, when they start to awake and get up, my boys are pretty busy now and I don't see them as much as I used to, but yeah, I love going out to eat, all four of us. Again, they're in sports, or at a job or something like that. But when the four of us actually get time to go eat together, I love it. It's super fun. And my oldest, he's going to be a junior here this fall. And so, yeah, Mark, I'm starting to get like, I'm starting to realize I have limited time.
You bet.
And so it's just the time we spend together is more precious. And so even if just the four of us are sitting at dinner, or if the four of us are at church together, or we're doing this or that, or at a ball game, like that's really precious to me. So just spending time together like that, I think I'd love that.
I love that. I'll leave you with uh, uh, my next door neighbor. Unfortunately, was diagnosed with cancer, and literally 3 or 4 months later passed on. And his wife, who we are very friendly with, made a comment to me, and she said, if I could back up, I would say no more wasted days. And it's an expression that has sat with my wife and I. We almost say it every day now.
Yeah.
No more wasted days, no more wasted days. And it's because you're right. My boys are 25 and 19 now. And so if I could go back and say, oh, I just wish I had another day like this or another day like that, or so I'll leave with no more wasted days. But Drew Harden, number one, I'm just super excited for you and your company, Blue Compass. Started in 2007, obviously rocking it and doing great. I'll summarize just a few things. Mission and values are super important to you. I love the fact that you are always trying to improve. You're obviously a great leader, and also that there's way more to learn, and I love that. So keep learning. Obviously, that's a great thing. Open lines of communication. You're a super authentic and seem like a very transparent guy, and I'll bet you are just a fantastic boss, and we were thrilled to have you on. So I can't thank you enough. Any final comments?
Well, Mark, that was very kind of you to say all of that. I really appreciate it. And thanks for having me on. And yeah, I would just say, to all the leaders out there, yeah, appreciate your team. Appreciate your team. No more wasted days. I love that. I can't say it better than that.
Fantastic. Thanks again, Drew. Take care, everybody, and we'll talk to you next week on Balance Not Burnout.